Good evening, everyone. I am Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and Paying for College 101, and I am here tonight with Harlan Cohen. Let me just set everybody up with a little housekeeping and then we'll get going. I am going to, whoops, I think I muted. I'm going to spotlight myself and I'm going to spotlight you, Harlan.
Wonderful.
So that it's easy to everybody up to see us. I have to do one quick thing, everyone. I'm going to stream this to Facebook Live in case anybody wants to watch it there. And then we will get going. Okay. Good. So welcome, everyone. I would love, and I know Harlan will ask some questions too, but if you can put in the chat where you're watching from, how many kids you have, and I'm assuming most of the families on here tonight have a student who has just graduated high school and is going to be starting college in the fall. So if you want to tell us where they're going, that's great information too. I'm really excited to talk with Harlan tonight. We've done this a few years in a row, and I love having Harlan. I love the conversation. He's got amazing tips, and I also love hearing all these parents and your questions and concerns, and it's all like valid information. So feel free to put any questions in the chat. I will look over and maybe interrupt Harlan, with some of the questions. He's got a lot of great information and slides we're going to go through. And before we really even get started, I do want to thank College Ave Student Loans. They actually sponsor a lot of webinars that we give throughout the year on Road to College. They also are sponsoring this webinar tonight with Harlan. Harlan also works closely with them. So they are a very supportive company in terms of really wanting to educate families on the college admissions process, how you pay for college, and really how your child can be successful in college. And that's a lot of what Harlan's going to talk about tonight. So great to have you, Harlan. I'd love if you can maybe just tell a little bit about yourself. I mean, everybody knows that you are the author of the Naked Roommate series. But,
Yes.
Love to hear more about your background.
Well, thanks, Debbie. I was fascinated. I got lost in all of these comments and someone saying your kid's going to Iowa in 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? How is it 2 weeks? Oh, no. Or, oh, yes. Or I don't know what it is. I have a senior this year, a rising senior. So we're in it. And I was telling Debbie just how valuable Road to College is and just how many wonderful experts there are. And I'm sure a lot of you have gotten a lot of great insight and wisdom. And I'm so excited. It's kind of like I've done this with you before, but now it's like,
now it's hitting home for Harlan.
Well, you're like a star. I feel like you're a star. Okay. Well, you've created this wonderful community. So I'm so grateful and blessed that I can be here to spend this time with you and to be here with all of these parents. And I think what I'll do is just get started because I'll share more about me, and I care very little about me. I'm much more focused on everybody here. So if we can, let's just get rolling here. Oh, and I also want to thank College Ave Student Loans because I do a lot of work with them as well. And they really do want to support student success. And it's really quite remarkable. I also do some live speaking events with them. We do some really cool stuff.
Didn't even know that.
And some blogs. And it's really been about helping students to get the value out of their time in school and to get in, to get out and understand how to do it responsibly, which is, I think, unusual and wonderful. So how are you today? Everybody here, I'm curious to know. I asked this question, and you can use this same question when you're talking with your college students. You can say, how are you on a scale of 1 to 10, or text them, how are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Because it doesn't take a lot of work. And you get a quick little response. It's a great quick hit. And I know, and you're welcome to share this in the chat. You don't have to text me. You can do it in the chat. But I am curious because if some of you are ones and we just started, that means that you were already pretty miserable before I didn't make you miserable. which is a wonderful reality, although I don't want you to be miserable, but I am curious to know where you are, because hopefully by the time we're done with this, you could be maybe one number higher or two number higher. So if you share your number, you can let us know why as well, because I think it's always fun for other parents to just know why are you a 6? Why are you a 7? A lot of middle numbers
I
today.
was just gonna say, oh yeah, from like 4 to 7, but a lot
Yeah.
of 4 to 6.
But I appreciate, you don't have to, you don't
Ooh,
have to,
somebody's got a 10. That's great.
I always wonder what's going on. Maybe some people are always 10 just because they're breathing and they're here and they're just very grateful people. But it's nice to know what your number is and why and how you're feeling, because this is a huge time of change. And I think a lot of us are fluctuating, especially for you parents. For years, I had to pretend what it's like to feel what you feel. Now I'm getting so much closer. And next year, I'm even going to be more in it.
So how many more weeks do you have, Harlan, till your son goes off?
Well, I have about, why are you doing this to me, Debbie? It's cruel. It's cruel. Oh my gosh, that is freaking me out. So it'd be like
Sorry,
maybe,
because I saw somebody wrote it's 3 weeks and with an exclamation point because they couldn't believe it.
yeah, it'd be like 56 weeks, right? See, but 56 weeks goes really fast. So you got your first, so there's people who have their first child leaving and doing it first time's hard. I think even for other people with their last child leaving, it can be really hard. Or if it's your only, it's big no matter what. So wherever it is, just allowing yourself to feel that. And I think one thing that I've learned is, and I'm going to do a video about this, is a lot of, there was one student who wrote to me and said, my parents are so upset that I have to spend all my time making sure they're okay, and I don't get to feel what I'm feeling. And I don't want to put that on anyone here, but it was a really interesting perspective of, you should feel what you're feeling, and parents need to feel what they're feeling. I think a lot of times parents don't have people who they can share with. And I think it's really important as you progress through this first semester, first term, that you have those people as well, and you are supported. So I'm in your corner, and through my social media, I've got tons of people who are in your corner. I'm launching a new college.
Sorry, Harlan. Somebody is so detailed. They're really tracking 21 days, 3 hours, 22 minutes.
That's down to the minute. Now it's 21 minutes. Right. There's a need to be supported. And I hope you'll use your college's family support groups, Facebook groups. I'm sure that people can still use Road to College. And I know that, through my social media, there's tons of resources. I'm also going to be doing weekly coaching calls. So if anybody has problems, if they're challenged, if their kids are dealing with issues, I'll be in their corner. It's a new thing I'm launching this year. So you can check that out. And we're going to give away a winner. We're going to give one subscription to a winner. So Debbie can randomly pick that, and we'll let them know and they can get access. And I'm just excited to be able to be in your corner. So for so many of you, this is a dream. It started as a dream many years ago, and especially for you parents, you've been through a lot and your kids have been through a lot. I shared this the past couple years. I find this slide so interesting. This was the school year 2021, 2022. We're a little bit further along, but when we look at COVID, I believe our seniors who graduated, they were freshmen. Is that right? They were like freshmen during COVID. Is that correct, parents? I can see some of you. Yeah. So, that was a long time. That was a big transition. So their last transition was pretty traumatic and pretty unpredictable. So one of the things is, if your child's uncomfortable, if they're surprised that they're uncomfortable, some of the feelings from COVID, the last big transition, those can pop up. Another thing we've seen is when it comes to advocating, being a self-advocate, having time to practice what it means to ask what you need. This has been a big thing. I've got a video on TikTok that has over 21 million views, and it's all about advocating for yourself and telling a teacher, asking a teacher for what you want. And I find so many students really struggle with this. So they haven't as much practice. And I think it's really important for them to advocate for themselves, and for parents and supporters to also know, how can we help them? This will become very positive and upbeat, but I want to be very honest with you because I've spent the last 25 years doing this. It's wild, Debbie. I've been doing this since I was so young, and I'm not anymore. So young. My hair is I'm losing hair. I got my glasses. I got a whole thing. My whole thing, I was like a young punk. That was kind of my thing. But now I'm just like a middle-aged boomer. Um, Someone called me a boomer today. I would find that so. Do you like being called a boomer, Debbie? Are you ever called a boomer?
I'm on the, yeah, I don't mind.
You like it. You're so
Yeah.
wow. Look at that. You've come to terms with your life. I'm in denial. um, so this is from where is this from? I think this is from Inside Higher Ed. Half of college students with mental health issues haven't accessed care. One of the things I'm going to be doing is sharing a mental health transition plan over the coming weeks. And for all parents, I think it's so important, and you'll hear me talk a lot about people, places, and patience. And Debbie, we were even talking about people, places, and patience, but the formula for a good transition or a healthy transition is people, places, patience. Who are your people on campus? And for parents, who are your people other than your kids who you can share with and find community? Where are your places? Places are where you sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. So you need to have places. And for a lot of families, the places were your school, were the after school activities where things are revolving around your kids. So for a lot of you, if you don't have that connection and tie, you have to find more places, which is exciting. Or you could just get a place near wherever your kid goes to school. But I don't think they'll like that. But when it comes to mental health places, I think it's really important to make sure that every student has a plan of who will they talk to if they get uncomfortable. Where will they go? Understanding the campus health services and resources. Most campuses have mental health resources. Sometimes there can be a wait list. Sometimes there can be a backlog. That's something that can be really tricky as well. And we know just from the most recent data, and this is from the CDC, they were talking about students who felt hopeless and sad, and 57% of females shared these feelings, 29% of males, but I've seen other studies where males have shared similar feelings. But we know that students struggle, and we know that the most important thing they can do is to get engaged, is to be involved, is to make sure they're out of their room and to find their places. So a question you can ask your child is, have you thought about some of the places where you're going to do things you like to do? What's your plan? This is what I do when I talk to students and coach them. And they're like, oh, I'm going to meet people in my residence hall. I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet people by saying hi. I'm like, okay, but like, where are you going to put yourself where you could be included and have access to people and resources simply because you exist? Like, where are you going to put yourself? And then for our first gen, I don't know if there's any first gen families here, but if there are first gen families, meaning your child's the first one in the family to go to college, taking advantage of those first gen places, multicultural centers, different activities. First gen, there's trio programs, student services, spiritual groups are great. You'll hear me talk a lot about this. But what we've seen, and there's actually been evidence to this, and this is the slide here, is when students know that other people are going through things they're going through, and they can hear their stories and understand what they've been through, students then feel much more connected and much more open to sharing their feelings. So if your child is having some trouble or struggles, it's really helpful for you to think, okay, where are some of those places where you could engage and find that connection? If you have a shy student, even a part-time job is great. I'm a big fan of part-time jobs. Debbie, did your kids do any part-time jobs?
In high school, they did. Yes.
Not in college.
In college, they've just they haven't had the time between. I mean, they work during the summer, but they haven't had the time between classes and activities.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think even, I think leadership activities sometimes end up being those jobs, but a job where you can be around people and you can find that connection. Because as this year goes on and problems come up, because I want to speak to more of like the problems and challenges that we see come up, it's really important that as a parent, you have a baseline of what's normal and natural. So you can be calm and you can direct your student to the right resources. Someone said, would you consider a campus job a place? I would consider that a place. It's a place where You can meet people where you're going to be around some type of advisor, some type of manager. So that person could be in their corner. Then there's the other students. Then they're actually performing a function if they're doing work with a professor. It's a wonderful way to get to know people in the department. So a lot of what I talk about is preparing for the big changes, but also understanding, just given all the trends, a lot of students are worried. A lot of them are anxious. If you're not familiar with Lisa D'Amour, I'm a huge Lisa D'Amour fan. And I had the chance to spend an hour and 15 minutes with Lisa. And we talked about lots of different things, including sleep and college. And I wanted to share just a quick clip. This is, what do you do if your student is feeling so anxious and nervous that they don't want to go? It's 2 weeks before college and my kid doesn't want to go. They're having incredible anxiety and they are having second thoughts. Should I force them to go or should I allow them to stay home?
That's a really big, complex question. Well, so here are the things I would ask in response. One is, have they basically seemed ready and demonstrate a great deal of readiness, and they're now having a moment of cold feet? And then if that's the answer, I would say, like, what could help them feel better? Like, would it be visiting the college? Would it be talking to someone who's been there? Like, is there sort of a half step that could happen between pulling the plug and sending the kid? Right? That's what I would say. The flip of it is, if they have been skywriting that they are not ready, that they are not a kid who can go to summer camp or just have a sleepover at somebody else's house, or they are not demonstrating that they are taking good care of themselves at all, and their anxieties may be very well founded, that they are really developmentally not ready to go to college, I would take that golden opening to call the college, ask them to hold the spot, and give that kid another year to grow up.
So I just want to reiterate this point that everybody's on their own journey, and your family's journey and your child's journey is their journey. And whatever that consists of, whether they feel like they're ready or not ready, or they want to take a break, or wherever they are, I think that a lot of times parents, we have this dream and this idea of like what it's supposed to be. But I think that flexibility and understanding that there are all these different paths is something that's really important as well. I think for the student who's nervous, really having a plan. And one of the rules I'm going to share with you is going to be how to tell your story as if it happened. And that exercise of telling your story, tell the story of your first week in college. It's Friday after your first week of orientation. Who did you meet? Where did you meet them? What was the most exciting part? What was the most uncomfortable part? When you got really worried, what did you do? When you felt really lonely, what did you do? Telling that story. And I can tell you, maybe your kids don't listen to you, but I'm going to be sharing these tips on my social media channels. And I'm going to be talking to them about this because I know a lot of them have these fears. Some of them are so
Harlan, are you suggesting that we as parents like share our story of when we went to college, that like first week or so?
I think that's great too. I'm such a fan of storytelling, Debbie. I think that we all have these wonderful stories of the things that we experienced, the highs and lows. I think in the beginning, it's more about just seeing where your child is and just giving them the space. And then as things come up over the course of the year, you sharing your stories, you being able to support them and having other people share their stories, cousins, friends, families, those people who have been there and done it. So, what I'm doing again is I just want to plan for if there are challenges, right? Because nobody expects these challenges. But as someone who's done this for 25 years, the majority of students deal with some challenge. Even the students who feel like they have it all together, something happens. And it might happen sophomore year, could happen junior year or senior year. Sometimes freshman year is easy breezy. And then sophomore year is like, oh, it's getting real. I should know where my place is, and I should know my people, and I should know my future. And there's a lot of sophomore anxiety. But for parents, I'm curious to know, and I'll keep revisiting this during our time, what's your biggest concern about the next year? What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? And it could be something you're super hopeful and excited about as well. It doesn't have to be a worry, but I'm going to keep looking at that. And I want to make sure I give you a framework. So by the time we're done with our visit today, you're going to feel better. Debbie, I don't know how comfortable you are talking about, the challenges you faced with your kids, but was there a challenge that they face that you didn't expect or they didn't expect that you're comfortable sharing?
Sure. It actually, the challenge that I didn't expect was with one of my daughters, and it was sophomore fall. And it's exactly what you said. It was all of a sudden the reality of this is real. I should be making decisions. She had to decide on what major to really, commit to. There was flux in her friend group, and she was really having a lot of doubts about whether or not she was even in the right place after she had had a pretty good freshman year, but it was just coming back, and that sophomore fall just like threw her off her game.
And how'd she get through it?
Well, ironically, luckily, we don't live that far from where she went to school. I met her a few times. She cried and then, several times. And then I said, let's take it one day at a time, and let's see how you feel by Christmas break.
Yeah.
And because that's they don't understand. They kind of like are thinking, oh, it's a bad week, then the whole thing is falling apart. You know what I mean? Like they have to just kind of like just focus just a little bit ahead of themselves and not think about, what the whole year is going to be like if like that particular week didn't go well.
I love that advice. I think that's wonderful. And if there's other parents who have been through challenges and you want to share that in the chat, please let us know, because I think it's so important as a community. But that idea of a point in time, a point that's like a month, give it a month, give it 2 weeks,
Right.
and really breaking it down into something more manageable. I think that's a great strategy because it does seem so big and it does seem so overwhelming. Some of the concerns in the chat, worried that he won't find his people, and also he thinks he knows it all. Hope that he really uses the resources and asks questions. He has a fixed mindset, would like him to have an open mindset. And I think that's going to be something, hopefully he'll learn and grow. I'm obsessed with rejection. And when people have a fixed mindset, I love to challenge this idea that when the world doesn't give you what you want, it doesn't have to be you or the world to blame. There could be this thing called the universal rejection truth, this law of nature that says not everyone and everything will always respond to me the way I want. And it doesn't mean that I need to know it all to be enough. It means I don't need to know anything to be enough, because there's this law of nature. I'm worried about my kid's time management. He's very bright and a big procrastinator. And that executive functioning piece is really big. And I think having, and this is the thing, some of your really high achieving kids are going to get C's, D's, and F's, and they're going to be the best gift ever. The best gift ever. Please don't panic. That first term is one of the most challenging when it comes to students achieving at the same level they've been used to, because sometimes there's a different learning style, different classes. The person they're sitting next to has had more education than them. I'm a big fan of students getting bad grades early. Like I call it celebrate your C's, D's, and F's. And you want to celebrate them, and you don't do a dance. You go to the academic resource center. You talk to upperclassmen who have been there and done it. You form relationships with your professors. So when your kid's like, oh, I got an F or I got a D, instead of the shame of like, oh, that's terrible, we're wasting our money, it's usually a symptom, clearly. And there's always a place and there's always a person who can help them and support them. My child has found a potential romantic connection there and worried they'll be so fixed on the person that they won't find their tribe. Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes that can happen. But I also think when students are going through a big change, they tend to want to be in the most comfortable situation. And when they're in those relationships, sometimes they lean on that. And, eventually those relationships probably, fall apart. And then they eventually find their people. One of the things is the job part's important. And having like one activity or one organization, something where they're involved, can really help. I think it's important to just keep writing these concerns. Maybe we'll go back to these if we have time, because these are very normal. And so many of these are experiences, especially with the love, just to hit on love. I wrote a dating book. I started writing my advice column years ago, and I talk about dating. And most students, most kids, like they haven't fallen in love and gotten their heart broken. And it's like, that's important, because how do you figure out how you can engage and emotionally mature if you don't get your heart broken, like if you don't make mistakes? So that's the other part of the education that I think is equally as important in so many ways. I've written a lot of books. I'm gonna be very fast with this. For those of you who don't know who I am and what I do, I've written about 7 books. The Naked Roommates. Saw someone was talking about how they just read The Naked Roommate. The books helped countless people. There's over 1 million books in print. I never thought I was very smart. I never thought I was good enough. I really struggled. I was like a 3 point, maybe 2.9 student, 3.0 with gym and art. And I was never enough. And what I've realized is that I am, and it took me a long time to get there. I share this because I've always thought I was mediocre. And what I've realized is that, I can be exceptional, and it took me a long time to get there. And it could be a struggle at times. And if you told me what I was doing now, I would never have believed it. But everything's been a product of experience and experiment, legally, experience and experiment. But that's what these college years are about. I do a lot to support students on social media. I got a really popular TikTok account, Instagram as well. You're welcome to follow me and connect with me. I had a really wonderful time. I was able to do a segment for today. I've had a great TED Talk that talks about rejection and taking risks. And all of these resources are available. You can watch these, you can share these, and they're all about supporting students. Because what I've seen over the years is the most important part of that student's experience is having people in their corner who understand how to get comfortable with the uncomfortable so they can navigate these changes and be steady. Lisa DeMore talked about a steady parent is the most important thing, because if you are a steady parent, then your child isn't going to be alarmed. And I want to be there right by your side so that you can be steady. In addition to what I do professionally, this is my family. My wife's a speech and language pathologist. And if you have any little ones, she's a children's author and does a lot of videos to help kids when it comes to eating and speaking. And then I got 3 kids. Eli is over there. Eli's the oldest. He's 17, then Harrison, then Asher, and my wife, and then my dog, Ollie. And every year, we had another dog. We had to put our other dog down this year, who was 4 years old. It's really
sorry
tragic.
to hear that.
Yeah, it was horrible. This is a trip we went on because we were all so sad, and we figured we should just go somewhere. And, it was like life is so unexpected, and there are so many challenges and so many firsts. My 10-year-old was really sad. I mean, we were all sad, but this is the first time he had to really grieve the loss. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of you, when your children leave, if they're leaving, it's grieving a loss. It's a milestone. It's the last time everybody's going to be here, potentially in this nuclear place. And it's okay to feel that. And it's normal to feel that. And the first time we feel it, it's hard and it is uncomfortable. But I think just reminding you and having people who you can turn to help you, because I think that most of the times people don't care about you. You're kind of pushed aside, but you really do matter. And the more steady you can be, the better partner you can be to support your child. So when it comes to your kids and what they're going through, life inside the classroom does not prepare students for what's next. It really doesn't. And I've seen this again and again. High school students, they really don't have the social and emotional life experiences to help them to manage change. And we get involved and they call us names: helicopter parents, lawnmower parents, snowplow parents. But I call you some of the most loving, caring parents because I'm one of them as well. And an involved parent's a good parent. It's just a matter of how to be involved and how that shifts during the college years. So simple rule number 1 is to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I mentioned there's a lot of change and discomfort's part of this experience. My college experience was totally uncomfortable, and I didn't have any idea this would happen. I wanted to go to a big school. I wanted to be close to my high school girlfriend because it was a miracle that I had one. And I didn't want to know people because I was sick of seeing all the same people. I got to college and I had a roommate. And this is not my real roommate. This is just stock photo of a shirtless man. But my roommate, I wanted him to be my friend. I needed him to be my friend. One of the mistakes a lot of students make is they require a roommate to be their friend. There's a difference between hoping and requiring. When we require someone to be a friend, and a lot of parents, you want your kids to be friends with their roommate, but when you require someone to do something, they have to say certain things and respond certain ways and invite someone to do things and introduce them to their friends. And a roommate's just someone you share space with to help with the cost of college. Friendship is a bonus. And I didn't know this because I didn't know how to make friends. And I relied on my roommate to be my friend, but he liked smoking pot. I didn't. He's like, hey, do you want some? After he was smoking a joint. I'm like, no, thanks, man. I'm full. And then he moved out. And I was so bummed because like we were supposed to be friends. So I tried to join a fraternity because I thought this would be a way to help meet people. I can be social, but it's very hard for me to meet people. I'm a slow burn kind of guy. So I'm not like hooping it up, like high-fiving it. I have a hard time bonding. So I tried to get into fraternity and I rushed like 5 different fraternities. I got rejected from every single one. And that was devastating. And this is a big mistake I made. And this is something I can't emphasize enough. When you talk to your children about their places, and talk about where are they going to find their, where are they going to sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. And make sure one of those places is a place where they don't have to audition or be invited. Because at a lot of schools, and Debbie, I'm sure you've seen this, at a lot of highly selective schools, those first year students get there and they're used to being included. They're used to being leaders and they have to apply for positions.
Yeah.
They get rejected from positions. I worked with one school and I would do programs in September and those students were already thinking of transferring. They were devastated because there weren't enough leadership positions at the school for students to live a life that they were living their senior year. So that question of like, what can you do? Volunteering, volunteer service. You can always serve. You could be on committees. You can, and if you don't get into something, I urge students, instead of giving up, talk to the people who make those decisions and ask if you can help in a different way. If it's the example of an a cappella group, can I help set up the stage? Can I help do marketing? Because someone gets laryngitis, someone gets COVID, someone gets sick, and who gets to fill in, right? It's the person who's there, who's in that space. Anyway, I got rejected from this fraternity. Really upset me, and I was devastated. Fortunately, I had a girlfriend. This is Alexis. Alexis was the love of my life, my first love, not my love now. I found other love, better love, more appropriate love, I guess. Anyway, Alexis was a senior in high school when I was a freshman. And I made a lot of mistakes of just relying on her. She was the only thing that gave me joy in my life during this time of change. And I leaned on her so much. She was having the time of her life. Her father compared our relationship to a dying puppy. That's why there's a dying puppy, and urged her to shoot the puppy and end the relationship. And I was devastated because I was on this beautiful campus. This is what it looked like at the University of Wisconsin in Madison when I arrived. And this is what it looked like the rest of the year. Let me just take you back real quickly.
Right.
So, this is what they sold me, right?
Right.
And then I was excited to go back to Chicago for winter break because it was so cold on Bascom Hill. But I started to feel really down and it was really hard for me. And I got depressed and anxious and I felt like a failure. And the thing about me is, I know I'm so lucky and I come from a place of privilege. And I felt like such a loser because both my brothers had gone to college and they did a great job, at least I thought they did. And I was the loser who couldn't survive this. And I had a tremendous amount of shame and I kept it to myself and I got very depressed and I didn't really talk to anybody. I decided I wanted to leave. And that was how I eventually found my way second semester. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but the revelation was I decided that I was going to transfer. And once I decided to transfer, I no longer required people to like me. So this is the rub. Because like when I was there, I needed people to like me. But I'm like, forget this, I'm out of here. I don't care if you like me because I'm out of here. And I got to focus on what I liked because it wasn't about like me, want me. It was about what do I want and what do I like, which was such an empowering place to be. And I didn't even understand because now I gave people permission to feel however they felt. It wasn't a reflection of me or my value. I still decided to transfer. I don't know if you know this, but 25% of students don't graduate from the same school they start at. which is like another wild thing. Cause I know Debbie, people are so worried about going to this school or that school.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, whether you're going to the most expensive school or you're going to the most affordable school, you're going to be amazing. It has very little to do with long-term success. Denise Pope at Challenge Success has done lots of research. There's lots of data. So if you're a parent who's like, oh, I wish my kid had gone to that other school, please think about something else, because your kid's great. You're amazing. And you taught them you're going to be financially responsible. And if you're a family that is really worried about your finances, then you can always change. You can transfer. You can go to a different school 1 year here, see if you get scholarships, see if you can become an RA, deal with, $10,000, $15,000 for room and board. And if not, then go somewhere else. It's not a big deal. None of this is such a big deal, right? Okay. So seems big. So I transferred to Indiana University because both my brothers had gone there. I had friends there, and there was a fraternity where I was a legacy, and they had to accept me. I couldn't get rejected, which is great, right? This is the thing. And there's a lot of students who are from marginalized groups, a lot of students who are going to look different and are from different backgrounds. Make sure you find that place, that multicultural center, that first generation support center, that spiritual group, because the key is people, places, and patience. And it took me a good year to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and find my people and places. This was the key. The campus newspaper. I wrote editorials. I volunteered. Nobody needed to hire me for that. The fraternity, I was a legacy, so I got in. Full Frontal Comedy, I was a founding member of an improv troupe. I didn't really have to audition because I was a founding member of it, which was great. So it's really important to make sure that your child is thinking in terms of people, places, and patience. And we'll get deeper into that. Now, there are 5 big transitions that you're going to go through and your kids are going to go through. The acronym is SEPFA. It's a terrible acronym, a horrible acronym, but the 5 transitions are social, emotional, physical, financial, and academic. Social, making friends. A lot of students are really worried about that. Emotional, what's going on between our ears. It's really important they have someone in their corner they can talk to. The physical transition, being in a new space around new people, actually taking care of their health and well-being. The financial transition, which can fluctuate, and the academic. And you can see the academic's the last one. I did that on purpose because we focus so much on academics before college, but academics are so impacted by social, emotional, physical, and financial. And typically when a student is struggling in the academic world, there's something else. There's a symptom. So when your kid isn't getting the grades that they necessarily want to get, what's going on? And if they can't figure it out, how can they find someone who can help figure it out? The secret is to never let the 10% BS consume 100% of your time. Because when you do, it's all consuming. The 10%, homesickness. Most students get homesick. It's normal. If your kid's homesick, this is great. It means they miss you. This is wonderful. You won. Congratulations. You won. So what do you do? Well, you give them the space and hopefully they'll find their people and places and we help them to work through it. We know in terms of students' mental health, it's been declining. 2019, 55.9% of students felt hopeless over the past 12 months. That number in 2011 was 45.2%. So just to give you some context, 45.2 in 2011, 55.9 in 2019, and then we get to this number where we're at to 65%. One of the things that I like to do is to rename the first year the getting comfortable year. Because if you can rename the first year the getting comfortable year, it's like relieving all the stress. Because if you give your child room to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, then uncomfortable is part of it, right? A lot of students really struggle because expectations are here and reality is here. Sometimes reality jumps up in the beginning, but then there's this gap. And this gap is where students start to panic. But if they can get comfortable with the uncomfortable and understand that this is part of the process, then it doesn't have to be so anxiety inducing. For the sophomore year, I love that you talked about the sophomore year slump, Debbie, and just how your children, your child went through that, because it happens at all different times. This truth, I'm going to be doing a lot with the universal rejection truth, because I think it's one of the missing elements on the periodic table, the URT. The universal rejection truth says that not everyone and everything will always respond to you the way you want. As a parent, you know your kids don't always respond to you the way you want. I'm married 20 years. My wife does not always respond the way I want. My kids don't always respond the way I want. There is this law of nature. And for so many students who get to school, some things aren't the way they want. And it's not them. It's just the process. But nobody has told them this, especially during recruitment and during admissions. It wasn't come to the school and be sad and feel lonely and feel homesick. 75% of our students feel this way, pictures of students crying. It's normal. The universal rejection truth normalizes this. There are students who fight this truth. They hate, hide, attack. Roommates don't have to be best friends. You just have to coexist. I have a roommate contract that I'll forward it. I'll get it out at some point, whether it's through social or I can figure out how to put it on the landing page. I should mention, I will post the roommate contract. I'm going to put it here in the chat. I should mention all the slides and resources are available to you. And I have more resources. There's blogs. There's so much stuff. I want you to have so much information and so many ways to help your kid to recognize they are normal and they don't listen to you because your voice gets lost, right? You're still affected, but I know how that works. So I've got me sharing it. I got other students sharing it. Because the thing is, they don't want to attack this. If a roommate isn't a great friend, that's okay. Your only job is to coexist. You'll find friends in other places. The only rule for roommates is to agree to the uncomfortable rule that says, if either of us does something that makes the other uncomfortable, we agree we'll talk about it. That's it. And if we could agree on that and make that our rule, we have a much better chance of getting along. And we have an even better chance of becoming friends. When you face this truth, you're open to feedback, guidance, and support. I'm going to mention this later, but I want to mention it again. When your child's going through something and they reach out to you, like, I like to fix things. I'm a fix-it kind of guy. I'm the wrong person to talk to because a lot of kids just want to vent. And that question of, do you want to vent or are you looking for advice, is so helpful. Because sometimes they just want to be on the phone with you because they feel your love. They just want to see your face because you remind them that they are always included. You are the opposite of rejection. And you remind them of the things that sometimes they forget. They might not need answers. They just need to remember that they're enough. Practice uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is not an emergency. And I think this is where it's really tricky, because we hear about so many students feeling hopeless, and I tell you about mental health, and we know self-harm and is an issue. So how do you know when it's an issue? If you feel it is, instinctually, then have them talk to someone. But situations like an air conditioner breaking, like, it's uncomfortable. They should advocate for themselves. They should work through that. But if you have a child with a history of having challenges, and this is where the mental health transition plan of who can they talk to even before they go, if you can still do this, who can they talk to when they're there so they have someone in their corner before they even need it. Simple rule number 2, think people, places, and patience. People, places, and patience. I'm looking at some of these worries. I just wanted to hit these worries. Worried about my daughter being too prepared. I don't see her scared one bit. I love that one. Like, she knows it all. And I think secretly there's something going on. And maybe she's so prepared and knows everything that she'll be fine. And that's okay. But if she's uncomfortable, really giving her that space and making it okay to know, like, hey, most people do struggle. And if you don't, that's fine. You could help other people. But if you do, that's okay too. Okay. Think people, places, and patience. So, this is cool. Now I'm in a circle. You can see me. I wanted to mix up the effects. Okay. People, find your 5 people. Find your 3 places, give it 2 semesters. So when I talk about places, what do I mean? Places are where you can sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, work. Sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. You have these slides so you can have these, but thinking it's the end of your first semester, what have you done? If you're a kid who's like been swimming your whole life, do something in the pool, right? Like teach kids how to swim. Go to the rec center. Just do something. Have something you could do independent of other people. If you're going to game, do it with your door open. Go to the gym. Do something that you can just go and do and potentially form relationships while you're doing those things. Places. Where are these places? Counseling, student orgs, intramurals, work study jobs, Greek life, performing arts, campus media, multicultural centers. People. Who are the types of people? So Debbie mentioned the situation with her daughter. It's lovely that your daughter reached out to you. You went and checked in with her. You're somebody who you're not paid to help. I don't think, Debbie, not from your daughter.
No.
but therapists, counselors, advisors, coaches, people who are paid to help, people you enlist, people you can ask, volunteers, friends, upperclassmen, cousins, alumni, people who volunteer to help. The forward-facing students, the orientation leaders, the peer mentors, the RAs, the students who have self-identified as leaders, those people want to help. Those people love to help. And when your student is having a particular issue, talk to that RA. Don't just talk to the RA about roommate issues. If the RA is the same major and you're in the living and learning community, ask them, what do I need to study? What do I need to do to study? If someone's talking about time management, ask that senior in the same major, what's the best way to study for a test? How have you found it? How do you manage your time? Like the thing is, there's all these people who have been there and done it, and your kids are surrounded by them. Also, if you don't know the right people to ask, use your family resources, use the campus resources so that you can point your student to those places. When I say 3 places, the reason I like 3 is because there's always somewhere to go. You always have something to do, and you always have options. There's a big story about hazing at Northwestern University. I don't know if you saw this. They fired their football coach, their baseball coach, the softball program's under scrutiny. These students were hazed physically. And this happens in performing arts. It happens in athletics. It happens in Greek life. And this example of if you only have one place and you've worked so hard to get to that place and you have no other places, when people start to treat you poorly, you're going to make excuses for them. You're going to keep secrets. You're going to feel shame. You're going to feel powerless. But when you have 2 places, when you have 3 places, when people around you start to act like morons or they do things that are unhealthy, you can say what you think and express how you feel, or you can just duck out and go somewhere else. I tell athletes, make sure you have that other place, because if you're on a team, you're not crazy about the coach, you're having a hard time with the players, you want to have that other place. It's strategic. If you think about your kids' lives as they've evolved, we know friend groups change. I mean, how many of you have had a situation when your kid was in middle school, right? Like the friends fall apart. And with my kids, we're really intentional. We talk about you need to have your places because something's going to go bad in one of those places. We know it. And when you have more than one place, you are empowered. And it's the same with people. 5 people, always have someone there, always have options. You're never alone. And these are people on campus. Make sure they have people on campus. All right. How long will it take? This is the patience piece to get where you want to go. Give it a couple semesters, give it a couple quarters. It could even take a year or two. A year or two. Students don't want to hear this. They want everything now. Remember I was talking about expectations and reality? The way to help expectations meet reality isn't to give up on expectations. It's to extend that timeline so that you have more opportunities to get where you want to go. Because rejection is part of the path of success. I have this book, Win or Learn, talks all about rejection. I'm obsessed with rejection because in order to be successful, you have to face rejection. And if you have a fixed mindset, you're going to think you're the problem or everyone else is the problem. All right. The rest of the rules go quickly. Don't worry. I know we're getting to the end, but we fly through this. All right. And I can answer questions at the end too. And someone wants to know if you'll get to rewatch this. There will be a replay for this. And I'll also be sharing more of these tips. If there's something in particular you really liked, let me know. Let me know in the chat. You can send me a message because I would love to continue to help you in any way. Simple rule number 3, their struggles belong to them and their victories belong to you. I love this. Let them struggle, right? You've seen this in so many books, and we've talked about students need to practice struggling, and a lot of them haven't, because if they struggled in high school, they wouldn't get into that exceptional school. And now they're at a place where they're around all these exceptional people and they don't know how to struggle. Give them permission to struggle. And this is, of course, tongue in cheek, because I'm only as happy as my least happy child, right? We know how that goes sometimes, but their victories belong to you. Enjoy their victories as well, but give them that room. When parents swoop in and don't let their kids process, they really don't give them the life lesson of being independent adults. And we see articles and stories about students who just don't have grit and resilience. But if they have people in places, they're going to be much better equipped to tolerate the discomfort that's part of normal, natural change. And while your kids are going through this change, if you want to challenge, I'd really challenge you to do something extraordinary. Do something you've wanted to do that makes you nervous, that's focused on you. Challenge yourself. Tell a story in your life. What are you going to do when your kids are gone? What are you going to do through December? How could you challenge yourself? Storytelling is a great device. It's May 2024. Here's what happened the first year in college. As Debbie was saying, you could go a month. It's September 30th. Here's what happened my first 3 weeks in college. Here's the template I like to use. It's May 1st or whatever date. I had the most incredible year. I reached my goal and accomplished fill in the blank. The most challenging part was this. I got through it by leaning on these people. I found people to help me in these places, and it took me this amount of time to get where I want to go. And I'm so grateful and proud of myself and my accomplishments. This is the story. I do this where I tell the story of the week. In my coaching, I talk about on Sundays, when you get the Sunday scaries, tell the story of Friday, because you're going to get through it. And when you start to tell the story in smaller increments of time, you start to see it, you start to believe it, and you can create it. But when things are so overwhelming and you feel like a loser and you feel like everything's bad because you're not enough, you can't tell that story. So you can start telling that story now. Just ask him, what's your story? What's your story going to be? When things get difficult and uncomfortable, apply the 24-hour rule. This rule is magic. This rule was shared to me by administrators. They said, our parents just need to chill out, right? What's the 24-hour rule? Give problems 24 hours to settle. If you like wine, you could have wine. You don't need to drink, though. It's up to you. You could take a bath. You can go for a walk. You could do whatever. And what's going to happen during those 24 hours? Well, nothing. The problem will still be there tomorrow. Maybe there'll be a solution. Your child will solve the problem. Or maybe there will be new problems and the old problem will no longer be a problem, and you'll solve the old problem, but they don't care because there are new problems. That's pretty much what happens so many of the time. But 24 hours is a great amount of time. Your kid can sit in it. Let them marinate in it. Because 24 hours, there's clarity. If they're struggling in a class, and this happens, you get that text, I failed a class. If you have engineering students who are going to be taking some of these these weed out classes, they're going to get Fs. And they're going to text you and they're going to call you crying. It's going to be ugly. I guarantee. I mean, it happens, but that's part of it. And it's okay. Give it 24 hours, because what they're going to learn over the next 24 hours is the mean average of the class was 54 and nobody passed and everyone struggled. And this teacher has a reputation of being a huge a-hole. And the first few tests are all about this. And the senior or junior who is in their living and learning community is going to help them to figure out how to get through it, because they talk to people. When they talk to other people instead of you, they learn and they grow. But I was trying not to swear. Debbie, I almost dropped an F-bomb. I was getting too comfortable with everybody here. It's really hard. It is so hard to see, but it's part of that process. Simple rule number 5, practice asking the question, what do you think you should do? Even if you know the answer. And that's that question of, do you want to vent? Are you looking for advice? but it's incredibly helpful to ask them, what do you think you should do? And then in your mind, think places. Where are the places they can get help? Think people. Where are the people? Who are the people who can help them? Sometimes they don't have that clarity. I like it to be habitual. If you have younger kids, middle school, high school, it's like, what do you want? What makes you uncomfortable? People, places, patience. What do you want? What makes you uncomfortable? People, places, patience. That's what it is. Road to college, Debbie, you're wonderful in what you've created. You've created a community of people who keep going back to a place to help others to navigate something incredibly uncomfortable. You have people who leave, who have kids who are way beyond college. I've
Right,
seen
and they're still there giving advice.
they're
Yep.
still there. They're still there, which is so beautiful because you've created a place with people who want to help others to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, to get where they want to go. And those same communities exist on campuses, but students need to tap into this in order to be someone who can build those meaningful relationships on campus. I had a controversial video. I said, don't bring a car to campus. I got slammed, man. People were so mad at me. And maybe there are some situations where you need a car, but a car means someone can hide. A car means it's easy to leave. And I want to make it clear for community college families, where parents who are commuting, that student needs to be on campus. Be on campus. Because if you're not on campus, you're not going to be connected. Study on campus, eat on campus. If your kid's close to home, don't have them come home. Try to discourage them from coming home. And that's why I like taking away the car. Because if they don't have a car, they can't leave. And if they can't leave, they got to figure out how to either get a ride or to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Rule number 5 can only be followed by students and parents who are comfortable with the uncomfortable, know how to find places, allow their children spaces, and can apply the 24-hour rule. I think it's really important, counselors, therapists, people who could be in your student's corner for when these things come up, like really encouraging to have someone who doesn't have the same last name, who's been there and done it, who could help them. And if they have someone they've talked to in the past, just reach out to them and say, hey, do you do teletherapy? Do you do telehealth? Just in case when my kid's going through this, are you available? If you have a history of that, which is great. And then this is the framework. This is the way I love people to see this. This is from The Naked Roommate. This is my message. Relax, have fun, enjoy every minute. Your job is simple. Be your personal best, meet lots of people, make new friends, make smart decisions, possibly find a career, possibly find love, and take risk after risk after risk so you can figure out what you love and what you don't love. Expect that not all these risks are going to go as planned. And when they don't go as planned, look inward, look outward, move forward, find your people, find your places, be patient, do this, and you'll leave college with more than a degree. You'll leave knowing what it takes for you to be happy. And really, what more could you possibly want out of your degree? There are going to be highs and lows and in-betweens. And as a parent and a caregiver, you have a front row seat. And now because of technology, you see it, you hear it in real time, it's hard. But when you have a baseline of what's normal, when you have community, when you understand, you can be grounded and less alarmed. Here are some books. Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's a great book for you to read. Grown and Flown. I like the Grown and Flown community. I like this book, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be by Frank Bruni, because it just reinforces the idea that the most expensive school and the most selective school is not the best school necessarily. It's just another school. It's just another school. It's what you do when you're there. And if you've appreciated what I've shared and you're like, wow, I would love a place every week where we can connect. This is the first year I'm doing this coaching program. I was talking to Debbie before we started because Debbie's so good at all this. She's so good. And I was like, who are the people I could talk to help me with my coaching program to be the best possible partner? So anyway, I have this. And every week I'm going to be covering a different topic. Every week there's going to be Q&A. It's for parents. It's also for students. Every lesson's going to be recorded. And I'm going to be doing this every week through November. So if you like this and you want another person in your corner, I would love for you to consider this. We're going to give one person a 9-month subscription because it's a monthly subscription model. And I also have a link to this in that QR code. You can get a link to this. This is all my social media. So you can see me here. You're welcome to follow me. And then this is the QR code. You can scan this and you get a link to all of the resources that we talked about. And I'm going to put the website one more time in here. I know that Debbie's going to do a rebroadcast of this. Oh, Debbie, I want to mention one more thing is College Ave has a giveaway. They have so many wonderful giveaways. They're giving away $500 to 10 families. So you can, if you haven't already done this, you can register for a chance to win. I have a link for that on the QR code. And I want to thank College Ave for just being wonderful partners again. Because Debbie, we would have never done this if it wasn't for them.
No, I mean, actually, they connected us initially. So yeah, no, they help and support in a lot of things all year round. So they've been very helpful and wonderful.
Yeah. And if there's any questions anyone has, I know we're kind of towards the end of our time that we allocated, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And
there was a question earlier on. It might have been specific, but somebody was asking about allowance. I don't know if you have any thoughts about basically,
I do. I think it's really important to have a budgeting app. Mint is a great app, and I think it's really important for your child to ask some other people who have been on campus, a sophomore, junior, just like what a good appropriate weekly allowance is. Because it can be different from campus to campus and also be based on the meal plan, how close they are to food, what people do on the weekend, the cities. But I would make it where they have to keep track of what they spend for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Because what you're going to see and they're going to see is there is a Starbucks on most campuses, and maybe they're spending $5 or $10, or maybe they're helping a friend and treating for a friend. So to budget, to have an idea. So they really have a realistic understanding of what they're spending. And then I would also encourage them. I think part-time jobs are great, even if you have plenty of resources, because they really give you a point of engagement. There was something else with the money that was that I was going to mention is budgeting, having a budget. Oh, there was another thing I was going to say. It was really wonderful. Do not let your child have access to a lot of money, right? So sometimes they'll work over the summer, and you can talk through this with them, but they talk over the summer, or they work over the summer and they make like $2,000-$3,000, whatever, however much. Then they get to school and they're spending $600 a week. There's treating for their friends. And by the time they get to December or November or October, they're broke. So if they have like an account where what's the budget going to be for the first 3 months? Maybe it's $300 a week. So put $1,200 in. And if you need more than that, we have to figure this out, right? You have to figure it out, because when it's available, they're going to spend it. And I think that's really important for you to, it's really important. The money stuff is like, and just, I'll throw one more money thing. If you are taking loans, and we've talked about this, I'm sure you've talked about this, Debbie, if not, but if you have unsubsidized loans, trying to pay that interest every month. To keep that. But
under control. Your comment, Harlan, about not taking a car has really hit home with a lot of people. And the reason, for them to, it kind of is that a forcing mechanism to have to, stay on campus, interact, find things to do.
Yeah, they hate me for that. I'm the enemy. I mean, that thing, it's like, and students are like, oh, it's so annoying because I have to ask everyone for a ride. I'm like, well, when you ask people for a ride, you're going somewhere with someone, and they're like, well, I'm in a smaller town and it's hard to get to the Walmart or wherever. And it's like, you know what? Yes, but there's a shuttle, and now you can get stuff delivered pretty much within 48 hours in most locations, sometimes the same day. So even just for a semester.
So Harlan, somebody asked, they actually just came to me, so you might not have seen it, but and they wanted to know, which I think is a good question for parents, how to stay involved with their child, but without being a bother and without bugging them. And it might vary different, like from child to child or student to student.
Yeah, I would say, and I know, Debbie, you have experience with this, and so I'm always open to your input as well. One thing when your child's leaving is to have that conversation. beforehand. And the conversation is going to be, how often do you want to contact? Like sorry, I got distracted for a moment. How often do you want to stay in touch? Right. So asking them, I like asking your child first, because when they say never, you get a good idea. Or when they say maybe once a week, right? And is it text or call? And they'll say, maybe I'll text you. So then if they're texting you every day,
you get an idea. Yeah.
Right. So as a minimum, you probably have something in mind, and maybe it's just, maybe just send me a text every day so I know you're okay, just, or every other day, just so I know. But talking about what the expectations are. And then another thing is ask them the best way to connect with them. Because I've found that some students, they're not good at texting and they're not good at answering their phone, but they're great at Snapchat. And if you are part of if you go to Snapchat, then Snapchat is going to give you instant access. I had a parent who wasn't able to reach their kid and said, I'm not giving any money because you got to call me because I have to book a trip. And the kid then said, just send me a snap. So they sent them a snap, and that was it as well. So with each kid, I think it's helpful. I think it's also asking them, how often would you like to stay in touch, and having that conversation ahead of time and seeing how that goes. So
I know you talked about your experience with a fraternity, but somebody's asking, my daughter asked about feelings about joining a sorority. I think that if, a college has a big fraternity or sorority scene, that can be a big pressure. And also depending on what time of year they do the rush. And the pressure is actually it goes both ways. It's for the student who decides to rush, and it's also for the student who maybe decides not to. And they're wondering the whole time, am I missing out?
Yeah. So Greek life is one of these things. I'm a big fan of a healthy fraternity or sorority, ones that follow the law and elevate and support students. And I think there are so many wonderful organizations. I've done lots of events. I spent years doing Greek life events where I would speak and meet them. And I was in 2 fraternities. I think the mindset of approaching Greek life is it's not about who wants me, it's what do I want? And truly owning this, that I'm okay whether I get in or I don't get in. It's really about who do I want to be around, and having a plan that consists of another place outside of the Greek system, because then someone's really empowered. The problem that I've seen so many students go through is they're in sorority rush or fraternity recruitment or however you want to call it. And they need to get in to this particular house. And if they don't get in, it's a disaster. And when I hear that, I think you are 100% depending on other people and other things to make you okay. And that is a red flag. You need to have other places beside the fraternity or sorority and another path. So if you don't get in, you'll be fine. And when you are going through that process, it's not about being wanted and trying to get people to like you. It's about seeing what you want and being interested and surrounding yourself around interesting people that align with what's most important to you. And it flips the script, because you could be happy not being in a fraternity or sorority. Now, sometimes with these Southern schools or schools that have, I saw someone's going to DePauw. DePauw's got a very big, DePauw with a W is a very big Greek community. I think it's also changing your expectations and recognizing that sometimes being in the best, is the worst, because you are always trying to live up to somebody else's standards. Being in the most comfortable is the best. And approaching Greek life and rush as this is an experiment and I'm going to see how it feels and no one's required to do anything, I think is the healthiest way to do this.
Good advice.
Yeah. So I want to, Debbie, I got distracted because I saw some people signed up for the coaching course, which is great. I was really grateful. And I want to mention that I was just going to do this. If anybody signs up as a result of this, I'll give you a free book. I'll sign a book for you as a bonus, just as a nice thing, because I'm excited about it. So
and
anyway.
And is that link, Harlan, on the that's on the landing page with all the resources?
Yeah, so it's on the landing page. There's a link to the coaching program, and it's a pre-sale. I'm going to start, the first session starts August 15th. So for anybody who gets it now, August 15th is going to be the first, but the platform's going to open the first week of August. And if anybody who signs up, I'll get you a book because I think it'd be nice. So,
and let me just say from experience, I told Harlan this before we got on. I went to find my book because I have Harlan's book, but I couldn't find it because my son has it at school. So, I mean, so if you get that book, your kids will really enjoy it and find it helpful.
Can we answer this one? I know that we're, I don't know what our timing is, but I really want to answer the question that just came in.
Sure, go ahead.
How do I teach my kid to be careful after seeing hunting ground? I'm scared. How to make sure she is safe. So what we're talking about is sexual assault and campus safety. And those are huge issues. Those are frightening issues. And we know statistically that so many of your children are in danger. Like it's a risk, it's a real risk. And how do you minimize this? And I think number one is talking about it. You know, just talking about, is this something you've thought about? Is this something you're concerned about, right? Another thing is, if you were in a situation and something happened, you know, what would you do? You know, what would your plan be if you felt like, you know, this was happening? You know, these are uncomfortable conversations to have, but I think it's really important to have it. Another piece is talking to, thank you for putting the martial arts. I was going to say when someone says, when you ask your child, what would you do? The self-defense courses are so important. They're empowering. And I know schools will actually have these. And I know sometimes large groups of people will, they'll take self-defense courses because it's one more way to feel empowered. There are also devices. There are they're tracking devices, but I know there's also jewelry that there's jewelry that you can press that will alert the authorities. Like I was thinking my niece got one of these. And I want to mention also, it's not just daughters, it's also sons, it's also non-binary children. I am a huge supporter and ally when it comes to transgender kids, when it comes to non-binary students, when it comes to the whole spectrum. So I also want you to know, like, my community, this community is a 100% loving and inclusive community to support students along the way, because there's the question of what could you do to help minimize your risk. And one more thing I'll give you is talk to a sophomore, junior, or senior. Have your daughter talk to those other people who have been there and done it, because they can tell them, oh yeah, you know, at a party, somebody had their drink spiked. There was, you know, stay away from this particular group. Make sure you're always with someone when you go to a party. Make sure you always come home. Make sure when you get a shared ride, you don't just get into the car. You ask the person who they're picking up, because there's been situations where people have gotten into cars where where unpleasant things have happened. So there's that part of just going through it. And in the book, I talk about this. And I think just as a conversation, it's important also asking them, is this something they're concerned about as well? And then the last piece is to make it very clear. God forbid anything were to ever happen, I want you to know we are always here. We always support you. We believe you 100%. No one is ever allowed to do anything like this. And I want to make sure you know of the resources available, because it's just a reality and we hope that nothing will happen, but we want you to know you're always supported and loved and empowered. And I think that conversation is so key and so important.
Well, Harlan, that was really wonderful information. Everything you've talked about tonight, I think is valuable to, parents sending their first child off to college, parents with students already in college, because as we've talked, things change from year to year. So thank you for all of your insights, your advice, your 25 years. I can't believe it either.
No, it's wild. I know. It's like, I can't believe it either. We'll keep doing it though. It's what you do is wonderful and your community is great. All the comments here. I just feel so blessed that I could be here to help. And as you go through these experiences, let's hope none of these things happen, right?
Exactly.
This is just in case.
Let's just hope that all we did was talk about it, but you don't ever have to actually experience this. But better to be aware than to, have it kind of, be surprised.
Everything, I'm gonna end it with this then I won't talk anymore. Everything's gonna be okay, because my motto is it always works out. It always works out, and it's gonna be okay. It's just gonna be an experience, and you're supported.
Great advice. Thank you, Harlan. It was wonderful having you tonight. Thank you, everybody who showed up. I think they really got a lot of great information. I can see from the comments there. Thankful that you shared all of your insights, and we will find a way. We will see you again soon. We will bring you back, and we'll have another topic, another conversation, and good luck to all the parents and the students who are going to go off to college in a few weeks. And share with us, share in the Facebook group. Let us know how it goes.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, College Ave.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, College Ave too. Good night, everyone. Take care.